What's up, my brothers in iron? Today I'm bringing you back another Q&A. So if you got any questions, post yours down below and let's begin. Hey Alex, what do you think about the seated OHB with the feet supported on the pads? I've been doing this variation for a while and find it has benefited from both AD press and OHB. Interesting question. I guess it depends if your feet are directly on the pads or if you're talking about anchoring them, like in the case of the decline bench. If it's the former, it's not something I'd recommend just because those pads can rotate and actually create instability, which is what you're trying to avoid. If anything, removing the legs via the Larson style, such that they're kicked out completely in front of you, I know Alec Onkiri has done this, is a far better choice to really maximize the strictness. And you won't be sliding off the bench either, especially if you raise that seat ever so slightly where your butt is planted. Now, if it's the latter, man, we're getting into pure dummy strength. It's actually how I do my AD presses. You typically don't see this except for a short I did a while back, but when the shins are anchored underneath, you're wedged into place. You ain't sliding off that bench. And although you're not really using leg drop because you're not standing up, you have that chimney effect. So I would say, if you have an adjustable bench with that decline feature, opt for it every single time. Or if you go to a gym that has those steel plates in front, you'll be super tight and won't have as much of a gap with the lower back. So you'll be able to maintain this position. Superior form, more straining, it's the optimal way, hands down. That said, if you don't have this little decline setup, don't worry about it. It's still an effective exercise. You don't want the butt being on the edge of the bench. That's all I'm trying to say. Otherwise, your 75-degree incline turns into 60-something. It's similar to guys who arch like crazy on their 45-degree inclines turning into a 30. You don't want to do that when you're trying to be upright. Hey Alex, how many reps per exercise should you be able to do to consider appropriate for warm-ups? Not much. I see many lifters sticking to the 15 to 20 range, getting a brutal pump and burn when that is not necessary. The max I'll ever go is reps at 10, and that's only for the very beginning when the weight is extremely light. So how about I take you through one of my bench warm-ups? I'll hit 2 sets of 10 with the empty bar. Then 1 to 2 sets of 5 with 135, depending how I feel. Usually it's just going to be 1. Then 225 for 3, followed by my work sets, usually 275 for 3 sets of 10, or whatever variation thereof. It's fast, I'm definitely primed up, and fatigue is kept at a minimum. This ensures that from my first set onwards, performance is maximized. And I'm not going to get snapped up. Never have been. And you see me bench 4 or 5. So these guys doing these drills that last 10 minutes, then they're working their way up, which is essentially a workout in itself. They're pretty exhausted. You're wasting your time. Or not contributing to further gains. And then for squats, it's the same thing, if not worse. So starting at 225, hit that for a triple, jump straight into 3 plates, get 3 reps, and 365 for 1, then 405 for my high repetition. So what I'm saying is, even if you plan on doing sets of 10 or even beyond, your warm-ups should be far less than that. If I'm shooting for a 10 rep max, the max I'll hit before that is going to be a 3 rep set. That's it. But usually, it's just going to be a single. Hey Alex, how does adding weekly volume through reps, reducing load by high rep range compare to just adding more sets? In no way can I call this comparable because it's the sets that we count for hypertrophy. You can gain equal muscle reps of 5 to 30. So if you're doing 3 sets of 5 and you transform that into 3 sets of 10, your volume never changed. Your workload is a bit different because if we're multiplying the sets and the reps, yeah, that total number is going to be greater. And you obviously got stronger. That's proof that you're gaining size, but you didn't add volume. Adding volume is if you go from 3 sets to 4 sets. That said, there is one exception. If we know that mechanical tension is the primary driver of hypertrophy, and you need at least 5 repetitions to get the job done, and your repetitions are below that amount, let's say doing 3 sets of 3, then technically, if you work up to doing 3 sets of 5 or beyond, we could say that was an increase in volume for the effective reps specifically. But other than that, no. High reps does not mean high volume. Big misconception. So if I did 3 sets of 10 and you did 3 sets of 20, you have double the reps. Workload is higher, but you don't have double the volume. We're going to grow the same is what I'm saying. Alex, question in regards to rest times when utilizing higher rep calisthenics or higher rep lightweight options. In these situations, is it more worth it to have a lower rest period when hypertrophy is the main concern? For example, if you were supersetting clean pause pull-ups and followed by clean dips, what would your rest time be? 3 minutes ideally? 100% yes, especially with high rep calisthenics. Why? There's already a coordination demand, not to mention work capacity needing to be high. And then with high rep basic variations, central fatigue is going to be through the roof, not to mention the fact that you're supersetting two of the most difficult exercises imaginable. Yeah, if you're not resting enough, sticking in the 30-second to maybe 2-minute range, you're leaving gains on the table. You will have to compensate by doing way more sets, just like those prisoner workouts or guys you see in the streets or calisthenics parks. Do you want to do that? If you want, be my guest. It's still going to get you to the end destination, but there's a more efficient way, which, as you just proposed, is resting 3 minutes. Personally, that is what I do, and it allows me to have efficient workouts. I don't need more than 9 sets. Even that is a crazy amount of volume. I can hit 6 sets for my pushing and pulling muscles and grow all the muscle that I'd ever want from calisthenics, especially when going weighted. But in the case of high repetitions, yeah, your form has to be dialed in. You need to push through the pain barrier and ensure that you recover for the next set. This way, motor unit recruitment is not compromised. You want your force production to be on point and not be limited by cardio or fatigue. So to eliminate junk volume, this is the best way, hands down. That said, 3 minutes is the absolute time, but in reality, you can actually lower it by a speck just because the time that it takes to jump from one exercise to the next might be 30 to 60 seconds. So do account for that, particularly if your equipment is spaced apart or if you're limited and have to change weights in between the supersets. Like your pull-ups and dips might not be equivalent with that loading pin. So by you removing those plates, putting them back on, clipping on your belt, then hanging, factor that in the total rest time. But yeah, it's going to be about 3 minutes on average. And if you got to do 5, be my guest. Hey Alex, can you provide some rough conversions between good morning rep work and deadlift 1 rep max potential? I've been following your philosophy for a while. I'm at 200 for 3x10 low bar good morning and wondering if I've got a 500 deadlift in me, thanks. If I were in your shoes, it would be well over 500 pounds, but that's me. Everybody's different, and the truth is, it's extremely difficult to give guidelines here. It depends what your muscular weaknesses look like and how are your leverages. Is your back already elite? Were you already decently strong at hip hinges? Maybe your conventional deadlift was 405 and your good morning was 95, and now you brought it up to around 200 pounds? In that case, I'd say you pretty much got this, but what if you never pulled off the floor? Zero specificity whatsoever. I can't say that's going to be the same. So it really depends where you're at in your lifting journey and what you specifically need right now to drive in that volume. So I'm going to say 185 is the minimum standard, assuming you're doing the exercise correctly. And for me, if I can do 225 or beyond, that's a high 500s pull. And then 255 is when I got a 600-pound deadlift, which I never even tested where my final strength was at, because then I ended up doing 275. So I would say, man, I probably had the potential to be close to 6.5 plates, maybe 620 to 630-ish, around there. But that's getting into higher territory with the good morning. So I'm going to say, just to keep it simple, 185 to 225, that's like a guaranteed zone for being a 500-pound puller. What do you think about banded good mornings? Will the resistance curve be bad? No, it's actually great for reducing lower back straining, since you're deloading the bottom where the bar is sitting on top of your neck, you're all the way bent forward, torque is maximized in the spinal erectors. It's actually a way of counteracting one of the largest criticisms of good mornings, that it's too stressful on the spinal erectors, which I completely disagree with. You can watch this video here to learn the truth, but in general, if you want to blend your system, the way I've done it is by using low bar and high bar good mornings, or low bar combined with SSB, or regular SSB with reverse SSB. I mix and match, right? But then there's also the good morning with chains, which is the second line of defense. You see me do that a lot. I think the best I did with that was only 185 with 30 or 60 chain, high bar position. Great way of deloading, especially if you want to rack up more volume. So if you're doing good mornings twice a week with a high proximity failure, like, yeah, that is a great way. And if I want to get an even stronger squat or deadlift, you bet my bank account I'd be doing this. Hey Alex, is it needed to do sets of 3, 4, or 5 reps as back down work on intensity days, or sticking to moderate 6 to 8 reps will be fine? Will there be a huge strength difference if you don't train the 3 to 5 strength rep range? There won't be, provided that you maxed out or did heavy singles beforehand. If you're just comparing sets of 3, 4, and 5 to 6 to 8, but that's like your primary strength work, then yeah, there is going to be a difference. I would say the low repetitions are superior. But if you already did a brutal strain, in my experience, you can use lower percentages. Just to say, I got my best bench and squat gains by doing back down work in the 70% zone. And at most, I would cap it to around 80. That said, you can go either way. It's a matter of personal preference. Like all the way up to the end of 2019, I was doing back down sets with lower repetitions. It was always 3 to 5. 3 sets of 3, 3 sets of 5, 5 by 5. That's what I did. But then from 2020 till now, I'm always in the 5 to 10 rep zone. So I think even this idea of interfering with adaptations needs to be questioned, especially in a concurrent program where all the training elements are worked in simultaneously. It might matter less compared to a more traditional periodization setup. So yeah, you can flip a coin between 70 and 80%. The gain should be comparable. Hey Alex, simple question. I'm thinking about buying an incline bench and selling my flat one. Though I still want to do flat bench occasionally, does it feel awkward to flat bench an inclinable one? That's what I did. In fact, I went from having the best flat bench in the world, a Thompson Fat Pad, to using adjustable only by Bells of Steel, this FID 3.0. Great bench, love it. But I will admit, when I switched to flat, there was a bit of a difference. Not really from a narrow perspective, because the dimensions are on point. Bells of Steel got you covered with that. They thought this through. But more so, the gap with the seat and the length in the bench, sometimes even height, which can definitely affect how you lie down on the bench and how you use leg drive. Your form is not going to be the same. And with adjustable benches, depending how that anchoring system is, you might notice a little bit of lateral shifting. So it's going to force you to have to be even tighter. So we can make the argument that 100% flat is slightly more stable for flat. I don't think that's surprising, right? But does that mean you won't be able to lift comparable loads? No, you see me do 355 in that flat position on the Arch Nemesis bar, which is even more difficult. And that was my first time ever using it. And that bar is already unstable. So if that wasn't a problem then surely it won't be a problem for most. And you see me bench 405 on the decline option, right? Using this adjustable. So what difference does it make from going from here to here? Not that much. Like I said, it's just that little gap where your butt sits and then the length of the bench where you have to adjust ever so slightly. And for Larson press, if the seat is more narrow, you won't be able to spread apart as much. You might be wobbling a bit more, but overall, like, it's comparable enough. You shouldn't have any problems. So if you need that extra space, I would go for it. You are going to adapt, and a lot of people in home gyms have been doing this for the longest time. And I've been using mine exclusively for almost a year. I've been doing the Smith Machine jam press for quite a while now. They have helped me with my bench press lockout and put mass on my triceps. However, if running an arm specialization program, can one do them as a first exercise in a workout in order to move more weight? You certainly can. And that's probably the best way you're going to grow your lateral and medial head of the triceps. The only problem could be potential elbow pain. So I have an arm day as well, and I do include the Smith jam press or the SSB jam press. And what I can tell you is I never start with it. It's always a push down first. And that's my rule for any overloading, heavy extension based motion, whether it be skull crushers or jam presses. Always got to hit push downs right before. It warms up your elbows, gets you ready. That's what I recommend. But if you got elbows of steel, if it doesn't bother you, and keep in mind the jam press is not skull crusher, it's a combination. And even if it's a fixed bar, it's still less pressure because you're bending and then you're pressing out. Like, you're going to be okay. But still, I always caution for getting as much synovial fluid in as possible. So you can run it either way. But the take-home message is this. The jam press can absolutely 100% be your primary triceps builder. I will pick this all day, every day over the close grip bench press because I don't need to involve my chest and shoulders. This gives you all the triceps benefits and you can still go decently heavy. All right, final question. Hey Alex, how do I grow calves without a machine? You don't need one. Get yourself a calf block, which you can either make yourself or buy pre-made. Even use horse stall mats. Find something where you can elevate yourself because without the stretch, you're gonna have a very hard time growing those calves. And then suspend through whatever means you can come up with. In my case, I do calves in the belt squat machine, donkey style. So I'll lean over on those bars. You get the craziest stretch imaginable. There's nothing that I've ever done which even compares. It's so painful that I usually skip calves. Otherwise, you can even do it standing up, or if you don't even have a belt squat machine, just do it with a dip belt. Suspend some plates, stand up on, you're good. Or stand on the block and hold a dumbbell. And now you can do one-legged calf raises at a time. Would I recommend having a straight bar be on your back and do calves like that? No, not really. Just because it could be dangerous. But I would recommend it with the SSB because that, your hands, you don't even need them. Which is why guys will do pistol squats and half field squats with absurdly heavy weights. You can do the same with calves. But honestly, the best way is not even load your spine to begin with. So dumbbells or dip belt, hands down the best way to build calves at home. And it's what I'll be personally doing to get them to a monstrous cow size. All in due time, okay? I'm trying to get shredded right now. I'm not building any muscle in my calves, okay? When I bulk, you're gonna see the gains. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this Q&A. If you got any more questions, post them down below and I'll see you in the next one.